Other features, topics that we're not covering. There's a lot of stuff coming in CSS. Some of it is not usable. CSS exclusions, not usable. CSS regions, not usable. CSS multi-column layout has been around and implemented for a really long time. For many people who like design, it is not usable. Flexible box, it's beginning to be usable. Grid layout, not yet usable. And device adaptation, I have no clue what that is. So, columns. This has been around since close to forever, and I'm going to explain it. But the reason people don't use it is because they think this is really ugly. It's really ugly because this is above that, and this is slightly below that. So if you're going to do columns, put margin top 0 and put on your paragraphs or whatever's in there, and put the margin on the bottom. That way this will start at the top, and you won't have this ugliness. So right now, this is actually not what we have. We have column count of 2. So let's just move that over to 2. OK. So what this says is column count 2, column width 10 ems, column rule is 1 pixel wide gray, and column back gap is 2 ems. So we can actually make that smaller. If we make it too small, there's not enough room for the line, so it doesn't show up anymore. So I'm just going to figure out how to actually make it look reasonable. OK, 0.8 ems. So it's a very small gap between the columns. Now I have two things here. I have column count 2 and column width 10 ems. And I don't know if you know this, but these are way wider than 10 ems. So when it says column count 2, it's actually kind of, you need to think of it in your head as maximum column count. It will not have more than 2 columns in this situation. Column width means minimum column width I want is 10 ems. So if I do this, 15 ems, it's still happy. 19 ems, it's still happy. But then if I increase this to 4, it's becoming like, I can't fit 4, so it's not going to. But then if I decrease this and say 10 ems, it's like, oh, I can fit 4. So you see how it's like minimum and maximum right there? OK. So that's columns, and they're still prefixed. And it is supported in IE10 without prefix, I understand. So this is usable because what happens if you don't have this? You get that. And that works fine. This is graceful degradation, or this is progressive enhancement. You don't lose any meaning. Feel free to use it, but realize that a lot of designers don't like it because of that. But you can fix that with margins. OK. Box sizing is the panacea of web development. Have you guys heard of box sizing? So you guys didn't know that there was a panacea. So you guys know the box model? Do you guys hate the box model? Who here thinks IE got it right?
IE6, yeah.
Yeah. Who thinks IE6 did something right? One thing? Not even? Come on. OK. Who thinks that the specifications box model is right? Who thinks it's the end of the day and they have no opinions on anything anymore? OK. We're almost done. So the box model is basically this. It says, hey, if your div is 200 pixels wide, and you have 20 pixels of padding here, and then a border, and then a margin, it's actually going to take up 290 pixels. That is the specification box model. The IE6 box model says if you want something to be a width of 200 pixels, then gosh darn it, it should be a width of 200 pixels. And what happens is box sizing says, gosh darn it, IE6 came up with something right. And basically says, if you're going to define something as being 100% wide, and you want to add padding to it, right, and border, it's going to be on the edges, right? You add box sizing, border box to it, and all of a sudden you're like completely happy, and life is good. So this is my panacea. I don't do star box sizing because that would just be insane. But I do add it every time I add if I ever add 100% to anything, I just was like, let me just add box sizing in there because I'm probably going to screw it up later. So if I see myself putting in 100% width, I just throw in box sizing border box. It still has to be prefixed in Mozilla, and you might want to prefix it in WebKit still, but you don't have to. CSS. Remember how I said that they took regions out this morning? Apparently they put it back in yesterday. I don't know what day they put it back in, but it wasn't there 3 days ago. So when I crashed my browser and I reloaded my browser today. So between last time I closed my browser and today, they put it back in. So this is CSS regions, which I was not going to cover, but I am now going to cover. So regions, like everyone is so excited about regions, and I really couldn't care less. But I'm going to go over it because you guys probably are in the caring camp. Or you don't know you care, but you will after this. So designers, print developers, they like to flow things around the objects, and you can't. You can't flow things. But what you can do now is I created this paragraph and I put it into the origin. And I just gave it the idea of origin for you to explain stuff. That's not the actual name that it has to have. And then I created these destination divs. And I made these destination divs. I could have put them anywhere on the page, but right here I just made 4 divs, floated them to the left, gave them 50%. Box sizing with a teeny bit of padding so that the box sizing, even though they're 50%, they don't take up too much space because they're still 50%. And then I said WebKit flow, so the origin should flow into the name of my flow. So the origin that ID doesn't actually have any content showing. It flows into name of my flow, and destination is WebKit flow from, so it accepts contents that's flowing. So as you'll see, when I move this here, if this is working, you see how the text is flowing? It's going from, you see this word, this content here is originally inside the origin div inside a P. However, it shows up divided amongst the destination blocks. And as I make this smaller, the word however, or no, the word try changing the width of the destination is going to move out of that. You see, try changing the destination. You see how the text is disappearing? And it's flowing into the next cell? That's regions. You don't need to know the syntax for regions right now. Just know that you can actually do this in the nightly build. Big whoop-de-doo. It's not here yet. But if you work with a print designer, they're going to be asking you to do this. So at least when you need it, the syntax for this is here in the code, and it will be updated as the code becomes available. So exclusions, it's basically, let's say you have this beautiful page, and you have a picture in the middle of it, and you want the text to flow around it. You can actually have an exclusion. That's only an IE10 prefixed.